Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Ben.
Thank you for coming along onto the What Really Matters podcast. I know you said earlier on you haven't been on a podcast before.
No, my very first time.
Well, we are blessed that you are on this one, and we've gone to you because we wanted to talk to you just from, to be honest with you, what other people have said.
Thank you. All good things, I hope.
No, it was. And I think it brings probably a slightly different angle,
yes,
which we'll cover to the kind of questions, and we normally ask basically the similar questions to everyone every time we talk.
Yeah.
And it's always around youth and community work, which is intertwined with your journey as well. But it does go off onto to different areas that really just all makes that whole mixing pot work or not work.
Okay.
So let's jump into it. I mean, I would say, how did we first meet? But I've just met you on the corridor.
Just met, yeah. So we're connected on LinkedIn, but we've actually just physically met in the corridor.
And it's a funny old world, isn't it, LinkedIn? Like, I don't know like what your take on it is. Like, you can have people that you obviously know and you meet, and then there's people that you're connected with.
Yes. That
you've never met and you probably don't have any connection with.
Yes, yes.
Do you meet quite a lot of people and they go, oh yeah, we're connected on LinkedIn? You think, oh God,
yes,
are we?
Yes, I do. And, I think LinkedIn has a lot of good, really quality, contacts and connections. It's been a really good tool professionally for me.
And me, as you can imagine, a youth worker that predominantly has been on the ground at the coalface, not so much now, but like there was no way I would ever be in front of the kind of people that you can connect with.
Yes.
And learn from and get that support. So well, I'm glad anyway it's around, because otherwise I wouldn't have got your details. So there we go. Big up LinkedIn. I want to start off by asking you a little bit about you, more than anything else, about what it was like for you growing up. Positives, negatives.
Okay. So I grew up in the inner city of St. Paul's, and I'm the daughter of a Hungarian refugee.
Okay.
So, and it's interesting, you were just saying about, without LinkedIn, you wouldn't have necessarily got in front of people that, you would have wanted to talk to. And I think knowing like where I come from, I never would have thought I would have grown up and be in front of some of the people I now talk to and communicate with. So it's a privilege for me in a way. So a daughter of a Hungarian refugee, my family didn't have much in terms of money, and it felt like a real struggle, and it also felt that real weight of judgment being the daughter of a Hungarian refugee. And, probably by the way, like we looked, the way we dressed, I always felt that sort of stigma of being a poor child from a refugee family. And but inside, I think, my family home, there was a lot of strength. My father's journey, I think, taught me very much around survival and determination and the cost of freedom, because he came to the UK when he was only 16 years old and couldn't speak a word of English and had to learn English and trained as an electrician. So he really did have to start from the ground up. So it really taught me about struggle, but also very much about empathy, because living in inner city St. Paul's, huge diversity. So I knew for a very young age around the importance of like not judging people based on how they looked or their faith or anything like that. And that the fact that many people were doing the very best that they could in the circumstances that they were faced with. So I think that sort of really shaped how I sort of saw people and interacted with people growing up, because I felt the sense of judgment and stigma from others growing up. So I really know how it feels for many young people when they're sort of growing up in that type of environment.
It's interesting, and thanks for sharing that. Do you feel like you were, when you were growing up, that there was anyone that was similar to you in the situation, the struggles that you've been through? Because like from the outside looking in, I'd think, okay, maybe Central and East St. Paul's, X amount of years ago, there probably was people that were there from lots of different backgrounds and cultures. Did you feel like there was people that you could see that were walking the same shoes as you? Or was it that it was completely different? It was a massive melting pot?
No, I could identify that there were people that were growing up and trying to make the best of their circumstances, particularly around sort of like extreme poverty. And my mum and my father, they were friends with people in the local community. So, we really understood around other people's sort of struggles. And I think, for me growing up, I couldn't really understand the concept around discrimination, because we were just so open to all sort of faiths and cultures as a family.
Do you feel like you had to be like that? I don't know. I'm trying to kind of picture growing up back in the day in those kind of situations. It felt like you were kind of, I don't know, discriminated to some extent because of the background and the journey of your parents. Do you feel like by opening up, that would kind of bring you into the community and
I think so, but I think it's also about the fact that, you know, often when you are brought up in that environment, it's around breaking down barriers. So, you know, if I was brought up maybe in a different part of Bristol, I might have had other sort of like judgments or experiences based on the fact that I wasn't exposed to that, you know, environment. So I think that's one of the reasons why I feel so sort of strongly around the importance of like compassion and not being a judgmental person, and understanding that people start their journeys at different points in life and they don't always have the same access to life opportunities as many other people do. And growing up in my school environment, I went to a grammar school afterwards when I was like, and that was like a real culture shock for me and my sister, because suddenly we were surrounded by people, Cotton.
Okay,
Yeah, we're suddenly surrounded by people that were actually really well off and hadn't had the life experiences that we had, and we really felt that sort of weight of like being looked down on, because, you know, I had to work from 10, 11 years of age. I didn't have the like, you know, ability to not be working, because if I wanted something like new shoes, I had to work to buy them, whereas for the other, you know, my peers at that time, that wasn't ever an issue. You know, they had what, you know, their parents would give them. So I remember that.
It's interesting. We've spoken to quite a lot of people that have been to Cotton School that that come from, you know, the surrounding areas that aren't necessarily from that area, that work within youth community and, you know, interconnected other organisations. So they must be quite open to purposely trying to bring people in from other communities that probably aren't as well off as maybe, or is it not like that? I don't know. That's the guess.
At the time when you had to pass the 11 plus. So if you didn't pass the 11 plus, then you wouldn't have got access to a school place.
So you deserve to be there.
So one thing I can say for me growing up was my mum was very strong on education. And so she was determined that we were going to be going to that school. And she actually got test sheets and made me and my sister do test sheets after school. And I think if it wasn't for that, I possibly wouldn't have necessarily been able to progress and do some of the things that I went on to do. Having said that, you know, when they talk about things like generational poverty and how you can repeat the same patterns, I left school at 15 because my focus at that time was very much around I needed to work. So I absolutely understand for young people, sometimes if you're growing up in a poor household, the focus is around making money, survival and working. So I left school at 15 with no qualifications. So I knew I was bright, but I still left school at 15, no qualifications. Got married at 16. Went up to Gretna Green and rang my...
Gretna Green, old school.
Gretna Green, exactly. And rang my parents from a phone box to tell them I was getting married. And
what
I won't repeat what they said, but it was swearing. And along the lines of, no, you're not, you're getting... home now. And I said, no, I'm not. And I put the phone down and then went off for a wonderful 2 weeks travelling around Scotland in a camper van after getting married. Thought it was brilliant.
Oh, it sounds brilliant.
So then when I came back to Bristol, I ended up having my 2 children very young. So again, it was that sense of like repeating generational poverty and patterns, because my mum had me when she was very young. And I ended up being divorced at 19, 20 years of age, living in a block of flats in Easton, on benefits, single parent. And it was at that time when all the media was talking around the drain, you know, single parents as a drain on society. So again, it was like that double sort of like labeling and stigma, and almost like, well, this is me now, you know, I'm like a single parent and this is what I'm doing. So for me, what was really pivotal was the importance of like a community venue at that time that I happened to go into that had a little cafe. And I ended up talking to a lady who was a careers advisor. And she said to me, she said, why don't you come on one of our community foundation courses? And I was like, no, I can't. I've got children. I don't think I can fit it in. And all of those, you know, things that you say to yourself around why you can't do something. But she was really quite persistent and she said, just come along and see. So I did. And that was really a turning point for me, because it was somebody who, for the first time, seen something in me that I hadn't seen, and was really very sort of like compassionate and supportive, but also quietly sort of like what I call like the appropriate use of soft power, encouraging me down a certain way. And once I completed that course, it was the first certificate I'd ever had, first qualification I'd ever had.
Did that give you some kind of impetus to
and
to
that
move
then
on
gave
there?
me a sense of confidence and self-belief that I can do this. So I actually then went back to college and did all my GCSEs and A-levels whilst bringing up 2 children, then went on to university and then qualified in social work at the time, and then did my work placement in the probation service. So I really, felt the importance around, if you have somebody, and it could be, and they might not even realise that they were an important trigger for you, but the fact that they believed in you at a certain point in your life and encouraged you to do something that then put you on a different path, that then,
It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
And it's unconditional. I think it comes back to all the buzzwords, doesn't it? Kind of the whole trust, the relationship centered on you. There's no thoughts about what you have to do. You're just there for someone.
Yeah.
Do you think that those relationships are still out there? Because was this lady a professional, or was she someone that was just working in the cafe?
She was a professional. So, and it was the community service volunteers that used to be based in Old Market. Okay. So they had the cafe where they were had placements for people with learning disabilities at that time, which was brilliant. But they also had like a little training centre as well. Yeah. And I just remember the importance of just like a real local community-based venue embedded in that local community that, was accessible to people in that local community that could be the trigger for change. And I think for me, going through like my own work experiences, then I worked 18 years as a senior probation officer in the probation service, and I managed one of the largest education, training and employment teams in England at that time. And they won lots of awards. But the culture that I've always tried to foster is working with people in a real person-centered, non-judgmental way, meeting them where they're at, and understanding that although you might not see change immediately, just by planting a seed, you could be doing something that they will look back on and remember in years to come, like I did with this lady.
I mean, it's amazing. And it aligns with probably most people that come on here, because most people have had some kind of experience which gave them a sense of belonging, belief, to feel like something is possible. And it always starts with a relationship, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? 100%.
Yeah.
And if those professionals out there don't have the capacity, the time, the caseloads, the whatever it might be, the youth clubs aren't open, the whatever, the different things aren't there, then, how are those sparks going to actually start, lighting up young people, young adults from those kind of communities?
And I think the other thing as well is being really clear around the fact, particularly like when working with young people, is they sense authenticity. Yeah. So they can sense when somebody is really there for them and is being authentic and actually cares, as opposed to someone who's just there ticking a box and just going through a checklist because they need to, because it's their job and they just need to check that, you've done this, you've done that. They know who's being real 100%, and who isn't.
Which is how some projects, organisations, whatever, work on the ground at the coalface, and how others don't.
But, exactly. Yeah.
So you're starting to go through your work history, and it sounds like you're at the probation team, and then it sounds like you started to manage bigger teams. Do you want to talk a little bit more about those, your career and the things that you've done?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I think my work in probation, it sort of took me to places where, people's stories, they were really at the margins of society, and those stories sort of matter deeply, really, because a lot of it's often rooted in sort of abuse and trauma. And a lot of people that are in prison have often experienced abuse and trauma, either as children or as young people. And sometimes some of their actions, some of their defense mechanisms comes from things, whether it's, SEND needs, or whether it's like mental health needs, or whether it's that sort of emotional dysregulation, because they've never really had the environment that sort of like supported them to develop those things. So I think for me, whether it's sort of building something from the ground up or working in the local community or supporting people, I've always sort of tried to approach it with that belief, what I'm saying around listening, real active listening, and the appropriate use of soft power. And that means around empowering people to believe in themselves again. And it's not always about hard outcomes. You know, in the probation service, it was very much focused on reducing reoffending. But when I was in the probation service, part of the value base was around advise, assist, befriend. In my view, we need to get back to that. I think in some ways we've gone very punitive now, and it has become a little bit more of like that tick box and, you know, making sure people
Why do you think that is?
I think part of that's been some of the cultural changes that have happened since transforming rehabilitation around to sort of like 2014, 15, where part of the probation service was privatised. And although it's all come back again under the public sector, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done to repair the damage. There are some brilliant, excellent, good people that are working in that sector. We just need to make sure that they have that sort of support to develop that culture again, where they're recognising what we've said, appropriate use of soft power, and also building relationships. Effective, constructive relationships is often what affects longer change.
Yeah. When people work within certain sectors and certain roles for quite a long period of time, I mean, this is part of, as I said to you off camera, this is part of the reason why we want to do this, because we absolutely know that there's experiences of people that have been in whatever, you know, of their version of, I don't say the word game, but you know what I mean, for however long. Yeah. Those kind of things could help inform practice in the future. Yeah. I mean, do you think there's anything else, if you you think specifically on probation now, and working with young people, young adults in that situation, is there other things that you feel like that way back when, and you know maybe even more recently, that was working really well, that doesn't happen anymore? Yeah, that could happen. Yeah, and should happen, or you know maybe as well on the flip side, was there things that actually really wasn't working very well, and things have really improved? I think it's going through a flux of changes at the moment, which I'm hoping will bring it back a little bit more around that advise, befriend and assist culture, and recognising that, you know, if you want people to change their lives, you have to realise first that you're dealing with a lot of years often of negative self-belief and self-talk. So sometimes it needs that sort of consistency and that belief in change. And when you've got somebody who's consistently believing in you and actually helping to motivate you to do the right things, and if you do something that's like, you know, you've gone off track, it's actually around, okay, let's unpick this. What's happened here? Let's discuss this. So, okay, so you've had an argument with your girlfriend. So, okay, so how have you been coping with that emotionally? You know, oh, well, I haven't got into work today because I can't deal with it, can't cope, or I haven't gone into, you know, my education because I can't, you know, whatever. And it's like unpicking and really helping them to try and navigate that and think about, is there different ways you could have done things? Quite often at Restore, we'll have people come in and go 2 days in a course. Oh, I'm not doing this. I don't even like that doing. I don't know why I'm here. Now you're talking my language.
And then, and that's adults. And then it's like, we'll actually go in the room and, you know, you'll often then find they're having a bad day because of something that's happened. And it's almost like, look, it's okay to have a bad day. You come back tomorrow, fresh start, clean slate. You're going to get through this because we're going to support you to get through this. And then often what we find is after they've completed and they've got their certificate, they go, I'm so glad you come and had a chat with me. You know, but if they were in another environment, like a mainstream college environment, and they did that, they probably would have been chucked off the course, and it would have then reinforced this idea of I'm a failure. I can't complete things. Whatever I do goes wrong. So we really work hard at the Restore Trust to really overcome that. And, you know, you've mentioned about the Key Café, and it's also, that's part of the premise around the way we work in the culture of the Key Café as well.
Do you want to explain a bit? So you said about your time within the probation service, and then it sounds like that you moved into other things after that. Do you want to explain a bit more about that? Because I think that probably fits in with what
sure.
you were saying then.
So when I was in the probation service, I could see that there was a real lack of what I call appropriate education provision for people that were on probation or leaving prison. And quite often, if we were trying to contact mainstream education providers to find courses, they wouldn't want, people with convictions on site, and, they would quote safeguarding and all of those types of things. So in 2009, I founded the Restore Trust. And at the time, it was because I could also see that we need ESOL provision. And some of my staff were seconded over originally to get that off the ground. And then in 2013, I was asked by the board if I would come over and lead on it because those staff were moving on. So I did that, and I've been at Bristol now leading it since 2013. And it's just gone from strength to strength. And I think some of that cultural stuff that I was talking about that I think is so important is something that I really tried to embed in the Restore Trust and support my staff to deliver. That, we are here, people aren't widgets. Yes, we have outcomes to achieve. Of course we do because of funding. But ultimately, what really matters to me is we're either planting seeds or we are actually helping people to, achieve qualifications and move into work, because I'm a passionate believer, because of my own journey, of the importance of education and employment as pathways out of poverty, but also as a pathway to reduce reoffending. And we know all the stats support that, because the two significant factors to reduce reoffending is sustainable employment and stable accommodation. And then if you put that with wraparound support as well, which is what we try to do at the Restore Trust, you really do give people a chance then to make changes. And it doesn't necessarily mean they will straight away, Ben. They can still go on track.
Because we all make mistakes.
We all make mistakes, and they might end up, committing an offence again and going back inside. But it's that planting of a seed. And, we often find people will come back out and then come to see us again because
there's that moment that could have been critical, a pivotal moment, but for whatever reason, it didn't fit into their world at that time.
Exactly.
But then if they didn't have that moment, their path could have continued in criminality or whatever it is.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Restore Trust is around supporting people, and we support anybody. It's not just people with convictions. So,
I was going to say,
So we work with anybody that's needing support around accessing training and employment. And because I think of our expertise of working with people with particular challenges, we find we get a number of referrals through the job centres and self-referral, and through lots of community-based organisations. And then one of the things that kept coming up for me in sort of around 2013-14 was the feedback that I was hearing from my staff, and also from prison leavers themselves, around some of the challenges they felt around finding employment. And part of that, again, fed into that negative self-talk, where it'd be like, who's going to employ me? I've been in prison. I've got a list of convictions. I've got no CV. I've got no references. What's the point? And that what's the point was always the thing that I said to my staff, we have to work with and overcome. Because whilst they continue to think, what's the point? That's when things quite quickly spiral down.
The only other opportunities they've going
to
keep them where they were going.
And, So what I did was I went in and actually spoke. So I'm a huge believer in co-production. So I went in and I spoke with inmates in the prison in Bristol, and said, what would it look like for you if you came out and, you had an opportunity for a job? What does that look like? And so many said that, and they want the same as everyone else. They want to be able to earn an income. They want to be able to participate and contribute in society and feel a sense of self-esteem. But often they felt that, that support wasn't there, or if it was there, it was on a voluntary basis. So what came out really strongly was the need to come out into paid employment. And the idea around transition as well. So the idea that they might not quite yet be ready for a job. So actually working in a transitional employment placement that was paid, that could give them those skills and enable them to gain the confidence, get used to the structure of a working day, and what employers would expect. And then gain the up-to-date references and the CVs updated, but also have the wraparound support if they're having a bad day. And, we've been open since May, and we've already been dealing with some of those challenges with some of our guys that come out of prison. but they're still here and they're still showing up every day. And that's what I'm proud of.
Surely that kind of way of working or that kind of methodology, is that a widespread thing? That there's these opportunities that aren't your, I mean, I'm just saying words, job at McDonald's or a job wherever. It's something that's specifically targeted to have that kind of pastoral support, because you know that they're going to be on that journey after just coming out of, however many years or 6 months inside.
Well, I could see...
Is that a widespread thing?
No, I could see what was quite effective from working in education around the fact that how we work with people to support them through courses. And I could see we needed something similar in the employment sector. And so the idea came, why don't we create transitional employment placements?
How's that get paid for as well? And if that's not a widespread
government... it's not. We had to do years of fundraising, Ben, and I've been
to that
so. I know, and we're still fundraising. I have to say, we're still doing it. So it's we were so. I've been so fortunate that I've had an amazing charity board who have been super hands-on, because I couldn't have done it on my own. So although, I had the vision and the idea and, I knew that this was something that was needed, it took 10 years to get there. And of course, we had the pandemic in between, but it took 10 years to get there to the point where we've opened the cafe. And it is now providing that structure of a working day. For me, it's really around the fact that the prison has been part of the local community for so many years. So now it's like the prison reaching out into the local community and breaking down that stigma.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people do you have working in the cafe? How big is it?
So at the moment, what we have is 2 to 3 rolling employment placements, the transitional employment placements. So we've got 2 full-time at the moment. We've got a part-time due to start with us very shortly.
And how long has it been open for? Because it's a recent thing.
Only since the beginning of May.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's been the learning so far? Come on, be honest.
far.
What's gone pear-shaped? What has been like? That has been absolutely instrumental in making this work.
Sorry. The learning so far has been, I think for me, the learning has been the fact that we do need more support around capital revenue funding to sort of still do some of the changes that need to happen in the cafe, because, what my focus has been on establishing the support and the culture and making sure that was right first. And I absolutely feel that we've got that right in the cafe now. The learning as well.
When you say the support and the culture, do you mean the people that are helping this actually run day to day? Because I can imagine there's got to be some kind of infrastructure of people that have got different skills and abilities. It's not just done a year. Great, crack on. Run the cafe.
So we have staff there that have had experience of working in criminal justice, but also have experience around hospitality.
Okay.
So we've got 2 staff members there that are general manager and assistant manager. And then we have the recruits. So we've got 2 full-time guys that left prison and have been working with us and doing very, very well, but have had their own little challenges along the way, but they know to come and ask and talk and, get support. So rather than, if they had been released into a normal employment environment, it's possible they might not have been working by now, because they would not have necessarily, they would have possibly gone back to old behaviours. They wouldn't have asked for that.
Around.
So transitional support is around getting them to identify how they cope with things that happen in life. Those things where you're having an argument with the missus, or something's gone wrong, or, your health isn't feeling too good today, or all those normal things where you're just feeling a bit rubbish. It's around getting them to really talk, and the access to support and the Restore Trust. My staff at the Restore Trust are in and out of the cafe and always checking in. So some of the staff that they met when they were in the prison is followed them through the prison gates.
Key as well.
And sometimes those staff were put on an apron and serve in the cafe, so they're hands-on pitching in with the guys that they've formed relationships within the prison. So, and there's that, real positive reinforcement, I think, that's continuing to happen. But also things like techniques as well. So, for example, one of the things that we've recently implemented is saying no phones on the shop floor, because what we've recognised is for some of the guys, if they're having a bit of a bad day and, they're having negative things coming back and forth on their phones, that affects them. So it's like, it's almost like trying to get them used to, let's focus on the work environment while you're here, and then we can talk about the other things once that's finished. So almost trying to embed some of those like
that
skills.
Should be embedded everywhere, shouldn't it? That's not just them. That's everyone.
Looking at you, Doug.
It's not so much Dougie. But do you know what I mean? Like just in general, I think that probably would be helpful. I always think about schools and think,
yes, I know.
Are they really needed? Anyway, that's not going off.
That's enough.
I mean, it's interesting. So the stuff you were talking about within the education programs with Restore, and I'm sure there's probably specific targeted programs that you deliver. How have you found then weaving young people, young adults into different like targeted programs that may have been through the criminal justice system, may have just come from whatever community, and they're looking to, I mean, I don't know. Is it things like construction courses, hair and beauty, stuff like that, or is it more?
I think it depends. I think that the important thing is that everybody's individual. So
is it like a college? Like no.
I would say we're absolutely so different from a college environment. So it's more. I think it's more that real grassroots, informal, friendly environment that we try to foster. And like I said, about change happens when people feel seen, heard and listened to.
But the content and the program delivery, how is that developed? Is it developed, I mean, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but is it developed to meet the needs of the young people and the young adults? So every year,
so it can be bespoke.
Different...
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, one program that we ran was managing conflict, because we could see there was demand for it. So we developed that program.
Okay.
So those are the sorts of things that we do. But I think one of the things that I'm really proud of is the retention of young people on some of our programs, and the fact that I think that again comes from feeling seen, heard, listened to. And the fact as well, we provide lunches as well. So we recognise.
This all sounds very similar to the GAP programmes. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be lots of differences, but there's like certain structural things.
Yeah. So like, so they can come in the morning and they can have some toast, they can have a cup of coffee, they can have a cup of tea. We provide their lunch. We're not funded then to provide lunch, but we always do.
How do you do it? I mean, again, is it through, I guess?
We're not funded for it, but it's what we choose to do as a board. We're not for profit, so anything that's made is funded into that. We also commit to a subscription with Fair Share. So Fair Share deliver food every week, and so anybody that's struggling with food poverty know that they can come in and get a carrier bag full of food.
That's huge.
It's those little things, and I say little things, but actually they're really big things. For people that are feeling on the margins of society. It's like, you are safe here. We will support you. Whilst you're here, we will do what we can to get you through your programme. But equally, we also know that life's really hard at the moment, and if you're using money to come on your bus, we will refund your bus fares. We will do those types of things. And one thing I'm really proud of, and I think the culture of Restore and also of the Key, is the staff do go that extra mile for people, and people know it. They sense it, they feel it, and that's what we get from our feedback.
Do you have any young people, young adults that have been through your programs that are now staff?
We have had, who've now moved on into other jobs as well. So we have had, and we've had people with lived experience that have come through and have been staff as well.
I only say that just because I'm thinking from experiences in some ways that sound similar. It's like people, they really want to be part of whatever these things are moving forward, because they've absolutely experienced the impact on them. And not everyone wants to then, recreate that whole kind of situation for others. Some will go and find that specific thing that matters to them. I don't know, it could be whatever it is. But in my experience, a lot want to come back. And I think part of that is, like what you're saying, it's about building, it's like a family connection. Where not everyone has that, as we know. Can you paint a picture? Can you give us a couple of examples, or an example of a young person that you supported and of their journey? Because I just think this, painting that picture for people that are listening that wouldn't necessarily have heard of the stuff you've done or wouldn't necessarily know so much about the sector, that sometimes really hits home, the reality of what you do.
Yeah. Well, I can think about some of the sort of like young adults that have come through, particularly on Restore Trust. And I can think of one person in particular when he left prison, and he really didn't know what to do about, his life. And he was suffering from like low self-esteem, mental health issues, and wasn't sure about what the next steps were. So he started working with my staff, and it took a little bit of a while. He did decide to do a construction course. We then supported him because he then said, I'd like to learn a trade. We then supported him to go into college and learn plastering. And I can remember years later, I think Theresa May was going to be made Prime Minister. She wasn't quite Prime Minister yet, and she was supposed to be coming to visit Restore Trust. But I think the Hillsborough report had landed and something, so it had to be cancelled. But he was one of the people that was going to meet with her, because his journey was, he actually ended up setting himself up as a self-employed plasterer. So from leaving prison and feeling like he didn't know what his pathway was and where he was going in life, to then start a course with us and then be self-employed and have his own business.
This is the kind of thing that when you're someone else that's been through a similar journey, to hear someone say, well, this is what's happened. This is what's happened. They've got the same lived experience. Again, they got that connection. Then suddenly, there's possibility.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Because I know that there'll be people that we all work with that can kind of put that point across as well. But it's always far stronger from someone that's just been through a similar situation and made it work.
It's those fundamentals for me. It's around, you treat people with dignity and respect, and, people know that. They can sense when they're being treated with dignity and respect. And I think as long as you have that as like your underlying principles, and it's not just lip service, like I said, people sense real and authentic people, and that's when like trust builds. And from that, when trust builds, that's when people can open up about what's really going on for them, and that's when some real change can happen.
Did you? So when you said you've had, some of the projects and programs you've delivered at different times have merged young people that have been involved in the criminal justice system and young people that have been, in other parts of the community. Has there ever been? Do you find it difficult to like merge and bring people together from those different backgrounds within courses? Because I can visualise a lot of different programs in the past, and there's challenges with different people in different situations. It's the reality of it, but
we have
it's quite bespoke. I would say some of it, isn't it?
We have a very at Restore Trust and also with the Key, we have a very, very robust safeguarding process and procedure. So we are really aware around who we bring together on our programs, because there are some people that possibly shouldn't be with certain other people. They might even actually have restrictions on their probation order, which means they shouldn't be.
Through other,
these postcode, issues and different things. So we're really aware of all of those types of things. But generally speaking, I think, people's needs and challenges often cross lots of demographics. So, you might be working with, young people that have got mental health issues that equally have been involved in the criminal justice or in the care system. And then somebody who's actually involved in the care system or mental health but hasn't yet been, is at risk maybe of getting involved in criminal justice. So, you're really aware of the fact that actually sometimes these programs can work to the good where you have positive peer mentoring. So I'm thinking, for example, at the cafe at the moment, the guys that have come out of prison now are brilliant for the new recruits that are going to be coming in because they've got lived experience, but also they're brilliant at peer mentoring and support.
Well, they've walked in the same shoes. This is the goal. Yeah. I've already thought of something. I'll chuck it out there. It might be an idea that you might. Well, I mean, just like where do those different people that have gone through that process and then they're maybe in a better place to then step out into society? Like, is there a way they can continue their journey that has happened through the Key charity that it still aligns with the food? And is there something like, is there mechanics courses that happen within the prison or something? I'm kind of thinking about how you can suddenly make these things mobile. So you've got the Key charity, and you've got these people that have gained those experiences and those skills that help them work within hospitality and cooking food and that kind of thing. And suddenly something else, which is something that they can step into.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I'm really proud of is the fact that, the guys that are in the prison are actually baking the rolls that we sell in the cafe.
Exactly. This whole circular thing is what I'm thinking.
There's jail jar jams that's made within the prison.
Jail jar jams. Say that quickly.
So that's being sold, merchandised in the cafe. We're going to look at more products. We're working with prodigal art, so we got artwork in the cafe from guys that have left prison and have done their artwork. So
where are they getting the stuff? Where are they getting? Is there gardens in the behind it? They got a massive flipping allotment, haven't they?
Yeah, there is little gardens and things in the prison as well. They've even actually got beehives for honey, but at the moment we haven't got enough honey to source to put in the cafe. But that's one of the things that we're looking at. So we've been really, really fortunate, and also we're working as well with Life Cycle.
Okay.
So again, Life Cycle, if some of our guys need to have transport on a bike, we can look at a subsidised bike for them or even a free bike for them. So the charitable, the voluntary sector is really behind this, and it's great to see us how we're all sort of coming together and collaborating. And also, it's taken a long time to get it off the ground, because we're working with the statutory sector. Having said that, this is a really brilliant way of sort of showcasing what happens when the statutory and the voluntary sector do collaborate and work together.
So is there part funding for this program that is coming through? What money that might go to people that come out of prison, or what? I don't know how it works.
No, we've had to, charity has had to fundraise it. But one of the things that we have is the building is a Ministry of Justice building. Right. So we've had that allocated to us to utilise into the cafe space. Okay. So that's, again, it's taken a real long time to get that off the ground. But again, I'm really proud of the fact that it's a partnership. Shows that when you do work together, good things, brilliant mutual collaboration can achieve mutual outcomes. So, the Ministry of Justice have a huge focus around reducing the offending. Like I said, we know employment is a massive factor in that. Actually, why wouldn't you be working with the voluntary sector to make sure that these things can happen? And the cafe is giving the structured working day. Some of the guys may go out into the construction industry or into other industries, because my staff are going to support them around progressing into permanent work. The transitional employment placement is really very much around gaining that sense of self-belief and confidence that you can actually complete a structured work placement. Isn't it? Absolutely. It's like that stepping stone. And we've got brilliant employers like Timpson's in Iceland who are going in and they will give, job placements for people leaving prison. One of the challenges... I didn't realise Iceland is similar kind of values. Yeah. One of the challenges, Ben, has been great, but not many sustain it, because often, if they're going straight into a job and they haven't addressed some of the other things that are going on in their lives. Piece, isn't it? About and you said it before, and you said it, and I can imagine one of the big things that has changed over X amount of years with people who would go, not just in and out of prison, but just in general, is that whole trauma-informed approaches, practice and approaches and support. Because you don't just suddenly get over a lifetime of whatever, even probably before you committed any crimes. No, absolutely. And I think as well, when you think like growing up, we often have different labels, don't we, given to us. And, and for a lot of the people that we're working with, they're often dealing with a lot of labelling, and it leads into that self-fulfilling prophecy. So part of the work that we're trying to do is unpick that labelling and really say, what is it that you need and you want for things to change in your life? I watched something the other day. Sorry, my brain is like that all the time. I watched something the other day, and it was a Jamie Oliver thing that was about dyslexia. And then I was pretty sure he said there was a stat around 50% people that have been into prison are dyslexic. Yeah. Because you can get that found out easier and to get proper certificate. Yeah. I can't even say the word, I'm dyslexic. Yeah. But do you know what I mean? Whatever the word is, to actually get that properly identified, but to get that done out in mainstream the world is a lot more difficult. If we know that, why aren't we putting things into place with people being identified at a very young age? Exactly. I mean, I'm going through this now with my daughter. It's we can already see, and we spoke about things in the past with there's obvious themes, how you can see
that at that point, if there's an intervention there
early,
then you absolutely change the. And this feels like it's one of the things. So I'm guessing some of the challenges that people might face or must face will come out about how they can fill out an application form, how they can read a book to learn this, that, whatever it might be. Any ideas on how we can get this nailed down? It seems massive.
It is, and I'm absolutely in alignment with what you just said. This should be happening so much earlier. And I'm going through this at the moment in the sense of that my 3-year-old granddaughter is showing very, very clear signs of being autistic, non-verbal, and all of the signs. Trying, to get an assessment, even from like knowing all these different things that we know, like you said, is absolutely crazy. And we know that early intervention matters. But yet, it's often meaning that people aren't getting diagnosed to a lot later.
But that would be so. I mean, I know this is probably obvious.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the converted, I can tell. But that would be so cheap in comparison. I mean, part of the issue is as well, from what I can tell, going through this at the moment, is that even if you went and got the absolute categoric certificate or whatever it might be, that doesn't massively impact on the support you get within education.
It's supposed to.
So this is me just like riffing off on one about this. It's like, and I know I was thinking, well, you constantly hear, don't you, about people that are social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that X amount, percentage are normally dyslexic or neurodivergent in some kind of way. Then I was like, has anyone done any kind of looked into this, and is there stats that show what backgrounds those people have come from? Because if it's more that if you're from a marginalised, undeserved community or whatever, and you've got less support with people fighting your corner around the challenges you face with the divergence, dyslexia or whatever, and then you're more likely to end in prison, compared to when people talk about how you think differently and all these kind of beautiful things But the reality is that you basically come from probably, I mean, I'm making the assumption here, and I could be wrong, so I'd love to know.
But it links into things like I was just touching on.
If you get the support, do you suddenly become a social entrepreneur? Do you know what I mean? Or if you don't, then do you end up in prison?
And it's recognising that within our prison system, there are a lot of people with huge amounts of potential.
Didn't have the support. Absolutely. So what is the support that needs to be put in place? I mean, I'd argue massively with youth services, youth sector, whatever it might be, because we know
we need intervention far earlier. We know that because there's a saying, isn't there? It's a child is more malleable, but it's harder to fix a broken adult. And I think that you are, because a lot then of those defense mechanisms and behaviors have become more embedded and sometimes very instinctive, and you're often having to work a lot to unpick that. So for me, it should be happening a lot earlier, and we should be doing a lot more preventative work. But again, it's that thing we were talking about earlier around lip service. You get fed up of hearing the same old things, but actually these things are going to need dedicated allocation of funding, resources.
Statutory, because when you mention the word statutory, I mean, this is part of the issue. Otherwise you end up, the voluntary sector is trying to do everything
it's trying to do everything. And it requires as well that recognition around the value the voluntary sector brings to that, because there will be many people that don't necessarily want to access what the mainstream services are. They want sort of support in their local community. And then in time, they might then be able to access mainstream services. So this idea around transition for me doesn't just sit for people that are leaving prison. It sits with lots of different elements of people that are, like you said, experiencing challenges from marginalised society.
And they won't even know. Like, how many people have I worked with over the years, and other people at grassroots communities, that then they've been through school, they've got no flipping clue. All they think of is that they are incapable, blissfully unaware of whatever the challenges, and they just think they're rubbish, and they do what opportunities have they got? They've already got to go out and do something to earn some money, and it probably isn't going to be something that is not a crime, because
like you say, that could be something that's from a neurodivergent need, or it could be something around sort of like that self-fulfilling prophecy from persistent labelling. it's all of those things, and it's unpicking that from an early age. And and like I said, for me as a young person growing up, and also as a young adult, I can remember the impact of labelling. But I think because of my background, I was
Not
able
even
to be
not
quite
known a
resilient.
label as well. Like, I don't know the right or wrong.
Yeah, I was able to sort of unpick it, and also I was, I think as well, part of it was my training. When I went through my training and I started to understand around, like deviancy and labelling and self-fulfilling prophecy, and I thought, oh my God, and generational poverty and how we can repeat patterns very unconsciously. All of those things made me think that, my gosh, actually I can recognise a lot of this within my own upbringing and life.
The early intervention bit has got to be huge, because you'll know all the things around certain characteristics, that you know that you're more likely to be going in a direction of prison or not. And this is one of the learning difficulties differences. It is one of those things. But if you're not going to get that clarified, even though it's bloody obvious to anyone that's working with those young people, then that isn't then part of that which should trigger. Because
then you feel like you're being labelled as naughty and challenging, and defiant to authority. All of those are things then that you feel like, But
in some ways, in certain, and everything you already know, that's a badge of honour that might support you in other ways to be looked at as someone that people actually like. You get some kind of kudos. And if you're not getting anything, because
you're going to go down a certain way where you feel like you're getting that sort of recognition and acceptance.
And I understand that. I think we all would, wouldn't we? If you're not getting the support to to make the changes, thrive in other ways.
Like, what I call that pro-social role modelling. If you're not being exposed to that, which is what we're trying to do in the cafe, in that work environment, very much pro-social role modelling around how you deal with things.
It's and this is all joined up, isn't it? It's like mental health comes into that as well, doesn't it? With certain learning differences. There's loads of stuff in it, but intervention's key. I'm going to fire off some quick fire questions.
I just thinking about the time,
Suzanne, and let's see where it goes then. So, what does leadership look like in the voluntary sector, and how is it different from leadership in corporate or public sectors?
I think leadership in the voluntary sector is very much sort of like rooted in very much co-production. I think we do really want to learn and listen to the people that we're working with, and also with staff and also with stakeholders, and really think about the services that we develop that are meeting people's needs. So it's not like, I think this is a great idea. Let's involve people. Let's get their feedback. I think in the sort of statutory sector, obviously there's a lot more bureaucracy, a lot more that departments
profit-driven
and things,
probably as well.
Well, I think in the statutory sector, I think the public sector, it's not even so much about profit-driven. I think it's just the fact that people.
Speaking corporates, probably.
Corporate are profit-driven. I think in the public sector, I think it's more around the fact that the outcomes tend to be very defined. And hard outcomes around, like, for example, like in the probation service, around reducing reoffending, great. And, making sure that people attend on time for their appointments. And if they're late, they could potentially be breached and brought back to court. I think within the voluntary sector, there's a little bit more understanding around life happens and sometimes things happen. Obviously, for me, soft outcomes around understanding people and their mental health and their well-being are things that I think should be funded instead of some, we're very much funded on hard outcomes, and that certainly is the same in the statutory sector. We need to start looking at how we're measuring things like those softer outcomes and those progressions.
I need to talk to you about something. I've got an idea around the construction industry. It's called Toolkit, and it absolutely is entrenched in all that.
Yeah.
It's a conversation for another time. Okay. Next question. What have been the biggest leadership challenges you have faced, and how did you overcome them?
The biggest leadership challenges, I think probably some of the challenges from the Key, to be honest. Having an idea around opening something and creating transitional employment placements, and then trying to deliver on that vision, and consistently facing lots of sort of setbacks and challenges where at times it looked like it would never happen, and having to keep that sort of sense of like belief in that, this does need to happen. that was hard. And, you know, to be going for 10 years to have a vision and then see it come to fruition, I think takes a lot of like sense of like resilience and self-belief. And there were times when I was thinking, is this really going to happen? And it has. So I'm very proud of that.
I can only imagine. I mean, and that fits in perfectly with the next question, because I mean, well, it makes sense when I say it, you know, how do you personally avoid burnout, and how do you support your team's well-being? Because these things, you know, you don't just create what you just spoke about without not having a massive kind of impact generally.
I do like take a lot of time around self-care and around I'll go to the gym, but you know, I've got to be honest, I have had burnout. I've had it on a number of occasions where, you know, I think I've literally have spent like a weekend in bed where I've just like recovering, you know, where I've just felt so drained. But I recognize that within myself. So when I feel that, I do try and take that time. I don't try and power through it, because I understand that if I do that, I'm just actually going to end up being off work unwell and sick. So those are things that I've had to learn to do. I'm not as young as I used to be. So like when I was younger, I used to just power on until I'd end up in hospital with pneumonia. And that happened to me twice. And it was like, okay, I probably do need to start listening and understanding that I just can't do that anymore. And I think as well, sometimes it's around trying to not take things like the frustrations around some of the challenges so personally. And, you know, so you have a real strong belief, and I'm sure you do as well. You have a strong belief in something and you can see it's needed. And sometimes it's like really frustrating when when the wheels are turning so slowly. And you're having to deal when you're having to deal with lots of bureaucracy, particularly from the statutory sector. I think there was very, very, very frustrating times. We're dealing with that with the cafe, but you know, we're there now.
And just the other part to that question then about the team, because obviously the team are supporting people that have been through lots of different challenges. Is there anything particularly that within the stuff you do at Restore and at the Key charity that kind of looks after their well-being? Yeah,
and I'm really, you know, focused on that, because, you know, they are working with people that, you know, have got some, you know, real challenges and some real difficult stories. And I'm really aware of the importance around, you know, peer support and debriefing. I personally see every single member of my team every quarter for a one-to-one. And that's something that I really value, because it gives me an opportunity to sort of catch up with every single person and see how they are. And
how many people you got work? You probably, your job's one-to-ones.
It depends, because sometimes we have freelance staff as well, so it can be between 10 and 15 staff at any one time. So, you know, but I do that, and I'm also starting to do that process with the staff that are at the Key Café as well, because I think it's important for me, because it enables me to remain really sighted on some of the challenges operationally that they might be experiencing, but also a chance to check in on how they are generally and what's going on in their lives, and I really value that.
Yeah, I mean, that connection's huge, isn't it? If they've got that, if you've got that connection from the top down, then it breeds the culture that, you know, that is allowing you to do the things you're doing. What's one thing you wish funders or policymakers better understood about the realities of your work?
I think what I'd like to see is recognising, like I said, like, you know, funding based on sort of like some of the sort of like the policy stuff. It's something you have to challenge the way systems are operating, and we have to challenge it in, you know, not making snap judgments about people in terms of like where they live and, you know, whatever. We need to be speaking to people, involving them in that. And I think my frustration sometimes with funders is it often tends to favour sometimes, like we said, the private corporate organisations because of their scale.
Or people connected with them.
Absolutely. And I think we need to be sort of really thinking about those community embedded provisions that actually speak and are accessible to our local young people.
In the communities, they speak volumes, but they don't have the same loud voice in that corporate world or wider world.
Absolutely.
Because people don't have capacity. I'm hearing you.
Exactly.
I'm there.
So we don't have the infrastructure to, you know, say we've got a department that could just focus on marketing and saying about these wonderful, great things we're doing. So, you know, it's places like this where we have to talk about it. Yeah.
What do you see as the root causes of youth and adult offending in the communities that you serve?
It's so complex, Ben.
Yeah.
It's so multifaceted. Like I sort of touched on already, you know, some of that could be rooted in very early year experiences and some of those behaviour defence mechanisms. Sometimes it's around neurodivergent needs. Sometimes it's around mental health. Sometimes it's just around that need to fit in. And sometimes it's just around that desire to make money and make money quick and easy because, you know, school hasn't provided that pathway of feeling like it's, you know, right or suitable for that young person. So, you know, that question's very much, you know, wrapped up in people's circumstances. And I can just remember growing up, you know, I could have quite easily have got involved in a life of crime from a young
I bet
age.
you have committed a crime. I bet you have. I bet I have. And I bet everyone else in there is in some way, whether it be, you know, something like very kind of minor.
Yeah.
Like, most people have.
Yeah,
like,
I have. Speeding.
Not getting caught is the truth.
Speeding has been...
I'm not saying people go out and commit crimes, but if we were all honest.
Yeah. Going down to Cornwall, I've got a little holiday home. I've been caught a few times speeding down there, so I've now stopped.
Naughty.
Yeah. I'm pressing the brake. Actually, I've got a different car. That's helped.
What was it? Like a horse and cart?
I had an Audi, and it's like one of those cars where it feels like you're going 60 and actually you're not. So it's like,
okay. Okay.
So I've got a different car now. It's actually a bit slower, so that's definitely helped.
Well, that's one tactic. I'll bear that in mind. My Ford Focus out there probably don't even go 60, so I haven't got that problem. What's often missing from conversations about rehabilitation and prevention, or does it need radical change?
I think, again, it's going back to the fact that most people that are going through the criminal justice system, you know, most people have the answers within themselves and that they know really what they need to change. What they need is that support to be able to facilitate it. And it comes back to the nature of the relationship. And there's been so much research that has shown this, that the quality of that relationship.
It's hyper local, isn't it? All of this stuff
can be absolutely the catalyst for change. And that I just go back to that time and time again. And that's, like I said, what we try and emulate at the Restore Trust. And the key, we understand the quality of that relationship and of people feeling that they are heard and trusted and they can open up to you is actually what brings around that human connection. We all want to feel accepted. We all want to have a human connection. But people take time to build that trust and feel that they can open up. And that's, again, something I think within criminal justice we've lost a little bit. I think people that are coming out of prison often feel like they are just reporting to probation, and probation don't always care around what's going on for them. It's almost like, I can tick this box. You have come today. Yeah, well done. You're doing great. See you next week. We need to build that quality of that relationship back.
Yeah, no, that makes.
And one of the things, we've had an Ofsted recently, and one of the things that's come out.
I'm guessing it was good, otherwise you wouldn't have mentioned it. We're in special measures.
It was good. No, it was good with 2 areas of outstanding. Okay. But one of the things that come out of that is around the concept of care in education. Okay. And I really like that idea around care in education.
I wonder how many schools kind of like, you know, obviously I guess it's probably slightly different in different kind of areas of work, but I wonder if that's part of this, like this the school mainstream education thing, and there's lots of schools that probably are really hot on that aren't so hot on other things academically based on cohorts and all the rest of it. But that matters, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Massively, based on everything you said.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah. My last question then, how has working in this sector changed you personally?
It's a real good question, because one of the things for me, what I said, that, you know, because of my life experiences, I think I've always inherently been very non-judgmental and very open to sort of different communities, different people, understanding the different life experiences. And I think my work has just sort of followed on from that in a way. And having been at the receiving end, like I said, of feeling very judged, you know, from a young age, from different things. And I always adopt that sort of like approach that, you know, we really must be much more treating people with much more respect and dignity and less judgment. And if we all did that in society, we might actually find we got different outcomes. And I know it's like a bit of a catch-all, but I think it's the fundamental values that I sort of live by.
Oh, wouldn't it be a solid thing if that was embedded in everyone's existence? Yeah. I was going to ask you what really matters to you, but to be honest with you, that feels like it's something that is pretty good.
That is it. Yeah, it is.
Thanks for coming along. Thanks for sharing your story. If anyone's watching this that would like to find out more about some of the stuff that you do and some of the support that you can give to young people, young adults, what would be the best way for them to get in touch? So
we've got the Restore Trust and the Key Café. They're all on LinkedIn and they're really easy to find. And if you type in my name, Suzanne Thompson, the Restore Trust, it will probably bring it up for you as well.
Great. Thanks for coming along.
It's great.
Thanks for sharing.
That's lovely. Thank you.